Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin. He's also the publisher of thebreaker.news. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you.
Victoria rocked by a huge scandal at the BC Legislature. What do we know about it and who's involved?
Well, we don't know much about it, about exactly what the allegations are, but who is involved is Craig James, the clerk of the legislature, and Gary Lenz, the sergeant at arms of the legislature. Think of Craig James as the CEO of the legislature, and Gary Lenz as the COO of the legislature. These are non-political appointees who basically run the legislature to keep it open and running so that our government can operate, whatever stripe of government we have that the people decide in elections. And as far as I know, this has not happened at a Canadian legislature before, provincial or federal. I tried historian Jack Granatstein. He said he'd never heard of anything like this before in Canadian history, and I'm trying to find out if this has happened anywhere in the Commonwealth, that a government which had to seek the support of the other two parties voted unanimously to suspend indefinitely and immediately, with pay and benefits, the clerk and the sergeant at arms. And this happened suddenly and immediately yesterday morning after question period. If you go to thebreaker.news, look at the story. Underneath the story, there is a video highlights of what was going on in the legislature. Normally what goes on in the legislature is not terribly exciting or sexy, but this is very intriguing of what happened, because you can see during the course of several minutes how there was supposed to be a committee hearing into the Environmental Assessment Act, how that was disrupted by Mike Farnworth, who went over to speak to the Environment Minister and asked for a few minutes and got the attention of the Deputy Speaker to table this, to read a statement that he read. His hands were shaking while he read the statement, his glasses on and cast down, and next to him was Premier John Horgan, who looked very glum. This was not a pleasurable experience at all, and this was the first time anything like this had happened in the 147 years of the British Columbia legislature. Minutes before, both James and Lenz had left the legislative chamber after their work was done, after question period, going through separate doors. And after that happened, you can actually see Farnworth leave momentarily himself, ostensibly to check that they were gone from the anywhere near the chamber and that they had gone to where they were supposed to be meeting with the Speaker of the House, Darryl Plecas. The one thing we have found out today is Darryl Plecas' aide, following Alan Mullen, has told the media over in Victoria that Speaker Plecas had some concerns back in January, and it was he who called the police into the situation. Don't know exactly what this is about still. And again, there's been nobody charged in this at all. There's just two senior staff members from the legislature who are still being paid but not being allowed anywhere near the legislature for the time being. They say they don't know what it's about, but we're getting small details, little bits and pieces. It was interesting yesterday after this happened. I immediately called Mike Farnworth after he was out of the legislature after the pregnant pause. When he answered the cell phone, I asked him what this was about. He only repeated what he'd said in a nutshell. Repeated what he said in the legislature. I asked him straight up, is this about a police investigation? Are the police involved? And he would not say yes or no. He continued saying that they were put on administrative leave, and he told me to call the office of the Attorney General. immediately contacted David Eby, and David Eby told me to contact the clerk's office. Minutes later, I get a phone call after leaving a message for the Premier's office. Got a phone call from Sage Aaron, who is a spokeswoman for Premier John Horgan, and she said to call the Speaker's office. So we had various people pointing in different directions, and nobody wanting to take account for what was going on, at least from the political side of things. Later, Alan Mullen from the Speaker's office emerged to tell the reporters in Victoria that there was an RCMP investigation, that there was a special prosecutor appointed, that this was unprecedented and disruptive and disturbing. He didn't say anything more than that, really. The Public Prosecution Service by mid-afternoon did release a statement that said that there were actually two special prosecutors, David Butcher, who's been special prosecutor in a couple of other cases before, including the lobbyist donations case and the Quick Wins case. He was one of them, and a fellow named Brock Martland and a lawyer named Brock Martland was the other special prosecutor. This is highly unusual. Again, I can't find anything like this happening in the BC, any legislature in Canada before. The clerk and Sergeant at Arms under this kind of cloud. Can't find anything like this before. I can't remember, and nor does anyone that I've talked to can remember where there's been two special prosecutors appointed to an investigation. Special prosecutors are appointed to help out the RCMP in investigations like this when it is that sensitive, and that there needs to be an extra level of separation from those who are being investigated, who may have influence over the prosecutorial process. They take it out of the hands of the prosecution service, the Crown, and give it to an independent lawyer who's been retained in this fashion, who not only helps out with the investigation, but may also be the prosecutor when this gets to court. And when this gets to court, if this gets to court, we just don't know. Don't know the nature of the allegations, and again, nobody charged, but this is a serious matter because, as we found out yesterday, this had been going on for at least 2 months, that the RCMP, near the end of September, contacted the Attorney General's ministry and talked to one of the assistant deputy ministers in the Attorney General's ministry and asked for assistance. They wanted a special prosecutor appointed, and then 2 or 3 days later, they get 2 special prosecutors appointed. The Crown says that this is because of the size and the scope, the potential size and scope of this investigation, which is fascinating that this could be that big. It's that big, but the information that's coming out of officials is very small. Even the RCMP I contacted would not say what the nature of the allegations is here. So here we've got this unique situation in British Columbia. It's the 2017 election where we have minority government, the NDP supported by 3 members of the Greens to have more seats in the legislature than the Liberals. We're on our way to a by-election sometime early in the new year in Nanaimo after the NDP member for Nanaimo, Leonard Krogh, became the mayor of Nanaimo. He'll have to step down from his seat and allow that by-election to happen, where the MP from Nanaimo, Sheila Malcolmson, is trying to keep that seat for the NDP. And, of course, the BC Liberals have Tony Harris, son of the former auto dealer and cell phone dealer, bearing the party's logo in that fight. And if the NDP keeps it, well, we keep on going as we're going in Victoria. And if the NDP wins, well, that means that puts the Speaker, Daryl Plekas, in an interesting situation as a tie-breaking vote, should there be any ties in the legislature. A lot of intrigue happening right now, but interestingly enough, the question period that took place, the first question period after this scandal broke out, there was no question by anyone about this, which is interesting. John Horgan said to the media in Victoria yesterday that he knew very little about it, but he had been briefed by Mike Farnworth, the Solicitor General and Government House Leader, about it on Monday, and that Andrew Wilkinson, the opposition leader, was also briefed about it. So ostensibly this is that serious that everyone on all sides of the political spectrum in Victoria is keeping quiet about it, not asking questions, and we're waiting for information to come out in drips and drabs The only explanation this could be, and I talked to Duff Conacher from Democracy Watch, he suggested that the only reason for secrecy in this could be that there could be others in the legislature who are potential persons of interest, and that the RCMP may be concerned about protecting evidence, and that if they put all their cards on the table and tell us everything that this is about, that evidence may go missing, or people may clam up. They have to approach this as police sometimes have to, in a very nimble fashion. That's his suggestion, although he is saying that there needs to be more information given to the public. This is these are public employees, and this is the seat of government. And also what makes this even more interesting is a lot of people don't understand it, the Freedom of Information Law, but the legislature itself, the government is, but the legislature isn't covered by freedom of information. And they're going to be spending about $75 million of our money. And the clerk and the sergeant-at-arms were paid more than $500,000 combined last year, and they're not subject to freedom of information. Maybe at the end of the day, if this goes in a certain direction, after this is all said and done, maybe this will be the case that does bring more sunlight to the operations and the spending of the legislature.
Bob, is this the kind of thing where there could be a non-confidence vote and the government defeated, and we have to go to either the polls or the lieutenant governor and have them decide who forms the next government?
That would be that's a little bit speculative at this point. I find it an interesting signal that the first question period after this scandal broke out, again, no questions from Andrew Wilkinson or anyone else on the BC Liberal side of the House. That suggests that they understand that this may be, as we've been told today, that may have been driven by a complaint from the Speaker, who himself is nonpartisan, even though he was formerly a Liberal MLA. So I don't think we're anywhere near that situation now. We got to wait and see and try to find out what really did happen, and if, in fact, there are others in the legislature and the legislative precinct who maybe people that the police want to talk to as part of this investigation, or maybe that the clerk or sergeant-at-arms might have some information about other people who may know something about why they're in this quandary right now. I think suggesting that this could lead to the fall of government is too early. The only chance we might see that happen is depending on what happens with the proportional representation plebiscites, our referendum, and of course the by-election. Those two dominoes are to fall in the months to come. If the referendum on electoral reform fails, then John Horgan will have to go to Andrew Weaver and make sure Andrew Weaver understands that the NDP did its college try to try to please the Greens and try to see if they could change the law. And of course, we'll see what happens in the by-election in Nanaimo in the new year. But I think that to speculate that this case, that the Craig James and Gary Lenz case might be something that could bring down the government, I think is way too speculative, way too early.
Would Darryl Plecas, being a former criminologist or criminology professor, be a little more sensitive to perhaps criminal matters that others may not be sensitive to, and that's why he called in the police? Yeah,
he's a former college professor on criminology, who also spent some time, in the jails in the Fraser Valley as essentially a judge in those jails to deal with disputes in jails. So he's had some interesting assignments, and he does know the law, and he has done research that was for the RCMP and academic research as well in the Fraser Valley. So he might be a little more sensitive, eyes open and ears open more than your regular elected official over in Victoria. And this Alan Mullen, he apparently brought him in at the start of this year. He is someone who was an official at the Kent Federal Penitentiary. Don't know all of his background, but yeah, this could be something interesting. Once we know a little bit more about what's going on, see if any search warrants are executed and see if any charges do happen. The only thing that this can be akin to in recent memory is it's actually coming up. The 15th anniversary is coming up at the end of December, December 28th, 2003. That's when police descended on the legislature and carted away boxes of documents related to the privatization of BC Rail. And you got to wonder, they did a news conference after that. They called it Project Every Which Way, if I remember correctly, and it was going every which way because they said at that news conference that there were elements of organized crime and drug trafficking. They were going every which way on this. In the end, it focused solely on the BC Rail privatization and eventually turned into the long-running court case that ended up with Dave Vazzy and Bob Verk, the ministerial aides in the BC Liberal government, copy a plea bargain and having their $6 million legal bills paid for after they had professed their innocence for so many years about this bribery. And we never got the full explanation from the BC Liberal government on the BC Rail privatization as it was promised to us. And the NDP ran in 2013 on a promise to have a public inquiry, but didn't win in 2013. They ran in 2017 and eventually won power. Didn't really win the election per se, but won power after the election and didn't bring us public inquiry. Haven't brought us a public inquiry on gambling corruption and casino corruption yet either. That's a whole other story. But what happened on November 20th, 2018, that's the only contemporary comparison that can be drawn as to what happened on December 28th, 2003. The big difference was December 28th, 2003, the legislature was mostly closed for Christmas holidays. November 20th, 2018, all the politicians were there in Victoria, and the media was there, and the media was watching also on the webcast. We'll see where this goes and what happens in the weeks and months to come.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink's CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, the new mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, promises to be open and transparent, just like every mayor ahead of him. He says he's going to hold news conferences about every 2 weeks to face issues and questions concerning the city. Is that going to be different than Gregor Robertson, who I recall I put a formal request in for an interview 4 years ago, and his PR people, some over 40 of them, came up with a new excuse for every week that I called after that asking for an interview. Do you think that Mr. Stewart's going to be a little different?
Oh, Gregor Robertson's people even stopped responding to my phone calls and emails. And I found them, of course, resorting to private and secret communications, opening up their own Gmail and Yahoo accounts to stay away from the prying eyes of freedom of information requesters like me. So if Kennedy Stewart can stick to that schedule, I think it'd be very positive because Gregor Robertson promised transparency and openness and accessibility when he was elected in 2008, and with every week, with every month that went by, we saw less and less of him. He was certainly someone who stayed away from the limelight, stayed away from microphones, except when necessary, and except when it really suited him. They really did act selectively when it came to dealing with the media. The Globe and Mail's reporter, Francis Beulah, became an insider, basically, whenever they wanted to get a big announcement out. They contacted her. She was very much an access journalist under the Gregor Robertson era. And same thing with the Vancouver Sun, whoever their reporter was, they had a revolving door of reporters, after Jeff Lee retired. And so they really focused on two outlets, the Gregor Robertson administration to get their word out, as well as the Vancouver/National Observer. So they played their favorites, and they also used their majority to their favor. Well, Kennedy Stewart, even though he was an NDP MP, he came into power as the mayor of Vancouver as an independent. He's not tied to any party, and none of the councillors are tied to him. There's 5 of the 10 councillors are in the NPA, and then there's 3 Greens, and there's 1 from one city and 1 from Cope. So there's a mixed bag at council, and there's no one dominant party, and he's just one vote. There could be some interesting votes in the months to come. He's trying to create consensus like Mike Harcourt did in the 1980s. He's got the chance to be more open and should be more open. And I think this is a very positive move. We'll see how it all works going forward. I'm sure his honeymoon will eventually end, and he'll have to answer some tough questions about some issue or program. But hopefully he will keep the chin up and keep those news conferences open, and will stand in front of the microphone until all questions are answered. And of course, he should be someone that is also interested in proactive disclosure. He's someone who's contemporary of Murray Rankin, the Victoria lawyer who was instrumental in the original FOI law here in British Columbia in the 1990s. Murray Rankin, of course, is an NDP MP, like Kennedy Stewart used to be. Kennedy Stewart has also talked about, in an interview with me for the Breaker.News podcast, he talked about reforms to checks and balances inside City Hall. And one priority he has, or 2 priorities he has, are conflict of interest, to make it harder to have a conflict of interest, to make it more disclosures by the politicians, as well as a lobbyist registry. Right now, Surrey has the only municipal lobbyist registry in BC. Vancouver could have one easily if it wanted to use a section of the Vancouver Charter that allows it to regulate how businesses do business in Vancouver. He's looking at that, possibly looking at asking the provincial government to amend the Vancouver Charter to allow the City of Vancouver to use the resources of the provincial office of the Registrar of Lobbyists, because there is a bit of a crossover. Some provincial lobbyists are also municipal lobbyists, maybe to streamline operations, allow the office of the Registrar of Lobbyists in Victoria to have jurisdiction over Vancouver City Hall, and maybe that could spread province-wide, you never know. So Kennedy Stewart is bringing some new, fresh ideas, a new, fresh approach into Vancouver City Hall after 10 years in which we were subject to broken promises and huge spending on spin by Gregor Robertson and the Vision Vancouver government.
We'll have more with Bob Mackin right after this.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Mackin. Bob, the BC Place Casino Hotel complex has lost over $100 million. How did they lose that money, and what's going to happen after this?
Yeah, this is quite fascinating how this casino hotel complex was about $700 million to build. It was supposed to be a lot less than that, under $500 million when they were first talking about it back in 2011 to try to get the City Hall approval for the massive expansion. Well, City Hall back in 2011 decided only to allow them to move their license across the street from the Plaza of Nation to this new gambling palace, which they did. And they opened this casino in the end of September of 2017, just in time for the major money laundering scandal. And that's really what they're blaming. Dundee Corporation, a Toronto investment company, issued its third quarter report earlier this month and had an analyst's call on November 15th, where the chairman of the company and chief financial officer talked about the situation, and they released their management discussion analysis and basically said that the initial ramp up of operations was slower than anticipated. There were a number of factors. The factor that they highlighted was that the regulatory cost and business impact of new anti-money laundering regulations applicable to the casinos in BC, which is kind of interesting because the partner of Dundee in the park complex is a company out of Las Vegas called Paragon Gaming. And you'd think that Paragon Gaming, having operated in Las Vegas, which is regulated much greater than British Columbia is, and cited as a model in the Peter German report on anti-money laundering and casinos, you'd think that Paragon Gaming would have brought to the table some of its knowledge on how things work in Nevada and tried to understand, well, if there's going to be higher standards and more checks and balances in British Columbia, well, here's how to deal with them. But they found it wasn't easy to deal with them, and that fewer people came to that casino and gambled than they thought would happen, and they're blaming it on the anti-money laundering regulations, which is quite interesting. The $108.5 million loss for the first 9 months of 2018, they said, included $17.7 million on operations, and the rest of the deficit, they said, was from deferred taxes and interest and foreign exchange. Now, they did say on this analyst conference call that there could be some big changes coming. They're talking to some consultants and other investors and other companies that could come in and shake up the whole food and beverage operations at the casino, because part of the casino, the way casinos are these days, they don't just rely on the slots and table revenue. They also rely on food and beverage. And in this case, this casino complex has two Marriott hotels. It's all connected to BC Place Stadium. And I find it interesting that they didn't talk about other aspects, that BC Place Stadium is really still an underused asset, that we've seen attendance decline significantly for both the Vancouver Whitecaps and the BC Lions. There was a very brief honeymoon period in 2011 and into 2012, very, very brief, when the stadium was reopened after the post-Olympic renovations, more than $500 million to put a new retractable roof on the stadium and fix up the place that was built in 1983. The honeymoon didn't last very long, and the Whitecaps are struggling to draw above 20,000. They've done it a few times, not as many as they say, because they don't release their attendance. I'm able to get it through FOI from BC Pavilion Corporation. The BC Lions attendance, they're struggling to stay above 15,000, and they've had a number of games where they've had under 15,000, down in the 13s, 12s, and 13s and 14s. These are not the glory days for either franchise. There's a lot of competition for the entertainment dollar in Vancouver, and of course the dollars don't flow like they used to. People's disposable income just isn't quite there, even with the economy the way it is, a decent economy. It's also a city that's very expensive, and people are spending a lot on housing costs, whether it's rent or mortgages, and may not be able to afford to go out for a night at a soccer game or football game like they used to. And also there's the fallback position. TV broadcasts, and they're also carried online, of sporting events are very high quality these days, and you can still have a social atmosphere at home or at a pub without having to spend money on tickets and parking and everything else there is to go to a big event at the stadium. But because of the attendance declines for both the anchor tenants of BC Place Stadium, that means there's fewer people supplied before and after a game to the casino to go gamble. The reason why the casino was built there and why Paragon wanted to build there and convinced Dundee to be its big investor is because it's attached to the biggest entertainment draw, biggest entertainment venue, sports and entertainment venue in the province. when Gordon Campbell announced this back in 2010 after the Olympics, after it hosted the opening closing ceremonies of the Olympics, the stadium was a very famous facility because of that around the world, and you'd think that, it would be something that would draw large crowds to the casino, and it hasn't exactly done that yet. So this is going to rely on Dundee and its partner Paragon to find some new financiers to come along in, and new ideas and new managers to come in to make this the destination that it originally was supposed to be, so they can reverse this big $108.5 million loss for the first 9 months of 2018.
Of course, the solution for big crowds is to have a winning team, and both the Lions struggled, and the Whitecaps did as well.
Indeed, although a winning team for the Whitecaps, I think, would definitely fill level 2, would put them way above the 20,000 mark, and put them at the consistent 25, 26, 27,000 marks. I mean, look at Seattle, where the Sounders are drawing well over 35,000 average per game, and sometimes even filling the place at CenturyLink Field. I think you could see big crowds at BC Place, and if they brought some marquee players, some famous world-class players here, and became a winning franchise that got into the playoffs every year and perhaps even challenged for the MLS Cup championship, I think that would definitely happen. The BC Lions and the CFL might be a bit of a harder sell, just because this is a market that has changed. The demographic shift is so severe that you've got to ask yourself, what is the long-term future of the BC Lions? Will David Braley sell the team? And who will buy the team? And will whoever buys the team, when David Braley someday sells, will they find a way to make it successful downtown? Or, as my theory is, downtown has outgrown the Lions. This is a different kind of downtown Vancouver now. It's a lot of younger people, a lot of people from other countries have moved into downtown Vancouver, and they may like soccer, but they're not really big fans of Canadian football. So maybe the future of the BC Lions would be in a smaller stadium, 20, 30,000 seat outdoor stadium in Surrey or Langley. But of course, the question there, who is going to buy the land and build that stadium? There certainly are some big real estate titans in the market, and I know the Aquilinis have had talks with David Braley, but haven't come to any agreement at all. So if the Aquilinis were to meet the price that David Braley wants for the team, would they find a way to cut costs and combine front offices with the Canucks at Rogers Arena? And would they be able to make a go of it at BC Place, or would the Aquilinis try to find a way to build a stadium somewhere else in the Lower Mainland, closer to where the core of the BC Lions and Canadian football fan base is? And that fan base really is closer to the Fraser Valley. It's south of the Fraser.
And of course, for the Whitecaps, it doesn't help that they've let their budding superstar Alphonso Davies go to Germany.
Yeah, that's a problem. They say it's not a problem for them because there was a very large transfer fee, more than $20 million transfer fee from Bayern Munich, and a validation that the Whitecaps residency program is successful at identifying and nurturing future talent. But the MLS isn't the league that is able at this time to really compete with the European big boys. And if you're a team like the Whitecaps, who like to keep a lid on the costs for the players' salaries, now that's what happens. The Whitecaps are also a team that really isn't competing for the world-class talent. I mean, Wayne Rooney went to DC United, and you would have thought that someone like Wayne Rooney could have made a major impact both on-field and off-field in a place like Vancouver, which does have a background and a tradition that goes back to the 1970s of being a place that was a destination for some of England's top first division soccer players. So, the Whitecaps now have a new coach, Mark Dos Santos, originally from Montreal, who was an assistant coach at Los Angeles FC, the expansion team this year. And, well, that's the only big announcement they've made since they didn't make the playoffs. We'll see what they can do over the next month or two to bring in some players, if they can find a marquee player to build a team around and also sell tickets and put bums in the seats. That'd be nice to see, especially in 2019. 2019 is the 40th anniversary of the Soccer Bowl 79 championship. There'll be lots of nostalgia in 1979. Remembering Tony Waiters and that team that made Vancouver proud, won Vancouver's first major North American pro sports championship, first beating the New York Cosmos in the semifinals and then the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the final, both at Giant Stadium in New Jersey. That was quite a time in 1979 and still one of the greatest memories of Vancouver sports. Well, let's see if the Whitecaps can get on the route to North American supremacy in the new order, in the new Major League Soccer circuit, which has been around for a couple of decades.
Bob, always fun chatting with you.
Thank you.
My guest has been award-winning investigative reporter Bob Mackin, the publisher of thebreaker.news, his website, thebreaker.ca. If you have any questions for Bob or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.